Good afternoon, Mike. Welcome to the show. I'm so glad to have you here today.
Hey, thank you, Paul. Thank you again for the invite to be here. I've been listening to your show for a while and so grateful for what you're doing for us shop owners out there in the industry. Just what you're doing is amazing. So thank you.
Well, from what I know about what you're doing, there's a lot to thank you for. So let's get in and tell your story. So tell us about Quick Tech Machining. How did you decide to get into it? And
Yeah.
let's learn about the background.
Yeah, man, I got into so I started down the business acquisitions route and looking at purchasing companies back in 2021 and then crested into 2022 and found a machine shop. And I knew of machine shops, knew what they did, didn't know a lot of the inner workings of them, what they were like, what it was like to run them. But I did know business. I understood the movement of in every business you have to sell and you have to deliver, right? And I knew
Mhm.
that piece. And so it doesn't matter what business you're in. I don't care if you're selling flowers or parts out of a machine shop. You got to sell and you got to deliver. And there's a lot of nuances throughout that process. But when I saw what was going on in the machining industry, I decided to go after industry that I had amazing people on a great need. And I think manufacturing is taking a really powerful move in the United States right now. We're seeing a
Mhm.
lot of manufacturing come back home. Uh, China imports went down 13% last year. It's the biggest dip in 30 years.
Mhm.
Manufacturing is growing in the States, which is great. So I started digging into this shop world. Like, what does it look like to run a shop? What are the obstacles? And a lot of people said, oh, be careful. It's a highly, highly, highly technical industry. You have to know a lot of tech. You have to know a lot of the things switching over to robotics, a lot of machines. You got to all but be an engineer. And I heard all this stuff, but I thought, but what I'm seeing a lot of great people in the industry like that know how to program machines, understand robotics, understand engineering, understand programs and prints and all of material. They get all that piece, but I wanted to bring a little bit more and maybe round out the industry with more of some of the business side, so
Mhm.
understanding customer psychology, understanding differentiation in the machining world, meaning everybody promotes the same thing in machining. Are we quality and on-time delivery, right? Well, how do we
Sure.
differentiate if that's what every shop on every corner is promoting? So when I decided to buy Quick Tech, I wanted to come in and take a shop and add some of those elements that may be, I don't want to say missing, because a lot of shop owners get this, but a lot of them do not. It's just that they were never taught it. It's just not as it wasn't
Yeah.
as on page. You know what I mean? And so when
Mhm.
I came in to buy Quick Tech in 2022, the first thing I did is I just listened. I'm like, I just want to hear what the pain points of the industry is. Sit with customers, sit with our machinists, sit with the sellers, sit with other people like you and other like truly movement makers in this industry and say, okay, what are the pieces that are missing? And it isn't that, I mean, I have never entered an industry ever in my life that has as many smart people as the machining industry. There is brilliance everywhere. It just has to be honed a little. And I wanted to add a little of that honing on the business side. So that's how I got into this, man. I found a shop for sale in central Kentucky, in a
Okay.
little town called Paris, Kentucky, right outside of about 18 miles outside of Lexington. And
Okay.
I found a little shop for sale there and bought that shop and had a blast learning the machining industry. And since 2022, next week we'll close on our fourth shop. We bought another one an hour and 20 minutes north in Cincinnati, and
Okay.
then bought two more in Indiana that we're closing on the fourth one in a few weeks here. And why we bought each of those shops are very strategic, which we'll get into in the show.
Yeah.
But yeah, that's my story, man. And I tell you, my overall mission is I want to create 100. I want to create 1,000 jobs. I want to create more jobs, and I can't think of a better way to do it than making parts that people use every single day.
Right.
So that's a
Wow.
passion.
That is inspiring, Mike. I tell you, I mean, starting with the mission of creating 1,000 jobs, that is such a virtuous mission, and it's not the mission of I just want to make a bunch of money, because that is not the right direction to approach building a long-term valuable, enduring business, that attracts people, that attracts growth.
100%.
So kudos to you for being mission driven that way. um, and what did you do before you bought this first shop?
Yeah, so I owned a company that helped people invest their money. I was pretty much an investment guy. I was buying real estate, started buying companies. I started a couple companies, owned a construction business back in the day. But for the 10 years before COVID, I traveled the country as a leadership trainer. I spoke at colleges, universities, corporations all over the country, 39 states, helping people build teams, helping people build and inspire people to come in and act like the mission was their own. And
Mm-hmm.
so when COVID hit and the my speaking business was taken over in about 8 minutes,
Yeah.
it was taken out. I mean, holy! You talk about being non-diversified in what I did. Holy moly! That was a tough month, couple
No
months, if you will.
kidding. Yeah, it's hard to
Yeah,
do virtual Zoom calls, Zoom
man, and I'm not a virtual
presentations.
guy. I
Yeah,
want to sit
yeah,
and talk with people. And
yeah,
so yeah, so I that's what I did, but I was really always an entrepreneur. That's really what I did, is I helped create revenue in the businesses that I did. And I really did it focusing on, I always felt like in every business, the customers, it's a race to solving problem for a customer. If you can get to the customer faster and solve their problems faster, that is the sales cycle. And it doesn't matter what we do, if we can get to the decision makers with solutions faster and more clearly articulated than anybody else, we can win business from anybody. And I realized that was true in every business that I've ran, and
hmm
certainly in the machining business. And as we get into that, we'll have some fun conversations about how to articulate that. But it's been it was such a weird, choppy ride to land in the machining industry. And
yeah.
now that I'm here, I absolutely love it. It's one of my favorite things I've ever done.
Okay. Well, let's start with the acquisition of the first one. How you found it, why you chose that one,
Yeah.
why it was for sale, what you've done since to, you know, revitalize it or whatever. Maybe it was already super vital, but yeah, I'd love to have you share that part, and then we'll talk about the add-ons
Yeah,
and
yeah.
more.
So the first one, Quick Tech Machining in Paris, Kentucky, it's just a straight job shop mill and lathe. I mean, not much bells and whistles, not much not much additions, and we've got this cool 3D printer. It's just straight
Hmm.
CNC mills and lathes. That's all it's got. It had some Swiss screw machines in it that hadn't ran in 8 years. They had
Oh,
one part that they ran years ago in the machine on these 3 Swiss screw machines that ran 24/7 as a real high volume part. That part went away and like cut their business in half. So those machines just sat there for years. So when we bought the shop, those Swiss screw machines were just sitting there, still unused, and still not being used just because they hadn't went out and gotten any business. So when
yep.
we stepped in, really just a lathe and mill shop. The
Okay.
seller was a 62, I believe he's 62-year-old gentleman who was just ready to kind of ride off into the sunset, wanted to do a little traveling with his wife, had
Yep.
come, he was working at that shop for like 15 years. And then the seller was going to retire, and he ended up buying the shop and ran it for 9 more. So what's that, about 23-ish, 24 years, right in that range, 23, 24 years.
Hmm.
He was involved in the company, but he owned it for 9 and then
Okay.
decided to retire. And what I've realized in this business, most of the sellers, every single seller actually that I have purchased from, are day-to-day operators. They come to
Hmm.
the shop every single day and they sit in
Right.
that front office or back office, whatever, every single day. And they're all in that 59 to 64 range of ready
So
to hang it
So
up.
they are the baby boomer generation,
You
the
got it.
10,000 per day that are leaving the workforce.
You got it.
They
That's
just happen
exactly
to
right.
own a business.
Yeah, that's exactly right. And that the piece of that you are 100% right on is, not only are they retiring at that rate, but they don't have a succession plan.
Yeah.
And so with no
Right.
succession plan, these businesses, one or two things are going to happen. They're going to just piece it off, sell the
Yep.
equipment off, so whatever, and sell the real estate off and be done. They're going to sell it like this and go through this type of liquidation process, and actually dispose or disposition process of the business and property.
So that brings up a question that I guess I've been grappling with for a while now. There's you see it on LinkedIn and various other places, forums. A lot of shops going out of business,
Yeah.
and without understanding the why behind it, it could be incredibly troubling or only mildly troubling. Um, the terribly troubling is, the manufacturing industry is on a decline. There's just not enough work. But as you said, 13% less stuff from China last year. Um, so the minorly troubling is the no transition plans, and they're just not sure who's going to buy it or take it over or whatever, and so they just close the doors, which then decreases capacity in the industry, nationally, which could be really bad if demand is actually increasing long term, right? Which
Yeah.
I get lots of indications that it actually is, and I personally feel like the long term trends are really positive for precision manufacturing in North America. So,
I do
in
too.
your opinion, after looking at many and just being in the middle of it, is it more that there is plenty of demand? There's just these shops that haven't put in place any succession planning, and so that's why they're closing their doors at a higher rate than the normal.
Yeah, that's a great question. So every single time, and I'll talk about the strategy of this and actually how we do this a little bit later, but every single time I visit a customer, we walk out with more part numbers to make. And so I I visited a customer, one of our bigger customers, and I actually know they are a bigger company, a smaller customer of ours, and we went there. We make like maybe 3 parts for them. We walked into their purchasing department, met with their purchasing department. They have 17,000 SKUs that go out to machine shops. We make 3. And so in this company would know it's a bigger name, but I say that to say demand, and they would tell us we cannot get people to deliver things on time. Like that, they've said that every single customer, we just got to get time. We got to get things on time. And so that tells me demand isn't the issue. Demand isn't the issue. And I've seen this, and that's just a small window of an example of how we've seen this. We are not running out of work. We always say, are you calling more customers or are you calling more machine salesmen? The point when we say that is like we want to be buying machines because we need to do more work. And lately we're calling a lot more machine salesmen than we are customers. And so our demand is growing. But I do think that with demand growing, so when you say is it troubling or is it not so troubling? I think it's sad, not necessarily troubling. It's
Okay.
sad because these legacies are dying of these guys that started their shop in their garage. You know the story. You've heard it 1,000 times. So many have been on your podcast. It's like, yeah, my wife and I saved up enough money. We bought a mill, brought it in, and then all of a sudden they're a shop running, millions of dollars. That story's everywhere. To see those things go away breaks my heart. Like that is
Absolutely.
awful, and so I don't want to see that. So the sad part is that. The not so troubling is it's going to create these shops that are going away because there's a couple they hit a couple ceilings I'll mention, but the shops that go away, they it's going to create all of those customers got to go somewhere. And the harder part, or maybe the troubling part, is that could actually be a little undercurrent of what drives inflation over the next decade. If we have less shops to make stuff, it'll become more expensive, and then it will then trickle down to the customer.
Sure.
And so that may be actually an underlying. People don't think about this, but manufacturing actually has a lot to do with inflation, on how much it costs to make and get stuff, right? And then they've got to sell it based on what it took to get that, and that's all the everyday products we use that.
Well, of course, yeah.
Right. And so it drives that. And so I think if a lot of these shops go away, but I'm seeing demand go up. A lot of these shops go away, then it's going to overburden some of these shops. Some of these shops doing 800 grand a year are going to all of a sudden be asked by the same customers to do 1.5 million a year, and they ain't going to have the people or the machines to do it yet. And so I think that's more what we could be in for, especially the shops that have weathered the storm thus far.
Yeah. So, the more I think about the question I asked, the more I think about some specific companies and, ones that I know of or know. And there are definitely shops that are by no means, retirement age. The founders, the owners are, right in their prime or maybe even a little younger. They still have 10 plus 20 years before they need to transition out, but
Sure.
but some of them are just not finding work, right?
Mm,
And so there still is this gap, I call it, between the haves and have-nots, and I have some theories about why. But do
sure.
you have any additional things you would add to that? You know,
Yeah, so those shops that are where if there's demand going up and they're still struggling to find work. In fact, I was at the a trade show. It's called Design to Part. Most people
of
know that
course,
trade
yeah, they're
show.
everywhere.
Yeah,
Yeah,
most people know that they're everywhere. We were at that show down in where were we? Maybe Atlanta. Oh, it was Atlanta. We were down in Atlanta at this shop, and one of the shops that he wasn't exhibiting there, but he walked up and said, "Hey, how are you guys getting work?" And we just started chatting back and forth, and he was really, really, really struggling, and he handed me he said, we've got a brochure we've started passing out. I'm like, and he's like, I've got some. I'm like, let me see it. So he hands me the brochure, and it's a brochure that was done on Word Perfect back in 1990. And so I'm like, and I don't say that in any way, shape, or form to down. At least he had one, for heaven's sakes.
right.
The company we close on in 2 weeks is our highest grossing shop and doesn't even have a website.
Oh
Like, doesn't
wow.
have one. Like, it's not that it's bad, they don't have a website. And so at least he had one, at least he thought to do it. So I'm not downing him at all, but I am saying that the mechanics of how you win customers, they've learned so much. I call it the chiropractor effect for our companies internally. The chiropractor effect is they're really great at cracking backs, but they can't get anybody to walk through the door. And
Right.
so it's the idea with machinists is they're so good once they get the part. They know exactly how to make. They know how to make it efficiently. They know how to make it well. They know how to hit all tolerances. They know how to do everything to make and even deliver it on. They know how to do it, but they don't know how to get somebody through their door. And they focus their entire career on getting the part made well, and none of their career, or very low amounts of their career, figuring out how to get people to say, "Will you make this part?" And that's the I think the crux of why you're seeing these shops where demand is increasing and shops are declining. It has nothing to do with their ability to make a part, program a machine. Their machines are probably just making just as good a parts as mine are, and or
Hmm.
better. And so it isn't any of that. They've done all that so well. It's that we spend less time, or sometimes no time, if we'd be honest, a lot of these shop owners focusing on how to get people to come through the door and say, make this for me.
Hmm. Oh man, there's like this is like a whole different uh, way to talk about a skills gap, right?
Mm-hmm.
Most of the time, we're talking about a skills gap in the labor to run the machines and
Labor.
do the setups.
Right.
We're talking
Yeah,
about a major skills gap in the ownership and leadership of these companies. So,
totally. And when you say a skills gap, Paul, not only are you 100% accurate, but quite arguably, it is the skills. It's the skill. That skill gap is literally the lifeline of your company.
oh
And
yeah,
so when you have a
absolutely.
lifeline of your company as your skills gap, you are essentially it's kind of a death sentence if you don't fix it eventually. Now here's where here's why some shops haven't even had to figure that out. We bought a shop like this a little bit ago. Um, he was the grumpiest old man I ever met in my life. and uh, and
I've
I've told him that
I've met
too.
him. Yep, yep.
I've told him that too. So he was just and I'm like, man, how did you ever get customer? But he was good at what he did. He niched in. But here's the thing: he had three big customers, if any one of those three big customers goes away, you know what happens. You've heard this
Yeah,
story, right? We had
yeah.
three really good customers. One of them went away. They were 29% of our business. And all of a sudden we can't, payroll's tough because
Hmm.
shops run, let's say they run a 16 to 28% margin, depending on where they're at in the sliding scale, how much staff they have. So they're running in that 20% range. They lose a customer that's 20%. We're talking no payroll kind of discussions or
Yeah,
hard
sure.
payroll discussions. And what happens is those three customers justify the shop owner not going out and learning how to get business. They don't have to.
Hmm.
They've got enough money to pay, and they pay themselves an X amount of good salary and live a good life. And till one of those customers goes away and they don't know what to do. And
Yeah.
so that's where that pushes back. So my first shop, Quick Tech, I bought. Most people would tell you never to do this. I bought one customer with 75% of our business. Um, which I am learning. When I came into the industry, I thought that was awful. And then I got into the industry, I started talking to people, and I realized that's actually kind of common. Not
Mhm.
one customer maybe being that much, but 2 or 3 being that much is very common.
Totally.
Um,
Yep.
and the hard part about that is you have a real. So I told our team, I said when we met together, I said, okay, the goal is to see their revenue stay the same, but their percentage go down. So I don't want them going down because they're spending the same. But the only thing that drives that percentage down is the sales cycle, right? We got to push that percentage down by getting new accounts, and we need to. And so our goal as a company is to land one new account a month. We pulled back on that because we realized we couldn't handle one brand new account every month. Because a brand new onboarding a brand new account every month could mean hundreds of thousands of dollars, and we just weren't prepped for that much influx.
Mhm.
But
Mhm.
but that being said, as it's growing, man, and these shops that are declining, if I could scream to shop owners everywhere, I would just say, man, you gotta learn that sales process and getting customers. Or just like Paul, I'll take this time to tell people, and you judge me if you want. I do not know how to program a machine. I could not step up to a mill and make it do anything I wanted it to do. Zero
Mhm.
chance.
Right.
And our business had the privilege of growing in well into the double digits last year. And it's not because I knew nothing. But here's what I thought: I can get guys that know how to program a machine, but I'm seeing way more guys in this industry that know how to program a machine that don't know how to program a customer. And so I
Mhm.
thought I'll just be really good at programming the customer, and then we'll win. And that was my mindset coming in.
I love it. Yeah, I've had, a couple of guests on the show that have this same approach. The most recent one, or that just comes to mind, is Mike Payne from Hill Manufacturing. He was
Oh, I
actually
listened to
more
that
on the
show.
sort of the PE side,
Great, great.
and Matt Lindsay also from Autopilot up in Montana, also more financial business guy, and decided
Hmm.
to buy a shop. Um, yeah, and both hugely successful. So it just goes to show you don't need to be a quote unquote technical founder, technical owner in order to have a good running business. And as you said, one of the most important lifelines is the ability to be a sales and marketing driven company.
Yep.
Uh, and you don't need to be a tool and die maker to do that. Probably better that you're not actually a tool and die maker, unless you just happen to be really talented in both the technical side and the business side.
Yeah. And I will say, Paul, to your point there, I have learned that often, not always, but often they don't live in the same brain. Those skill sets
Oh,
are in
absolutely.
different brains, right? The brain
Yeah.
of going out and striking up a conversation with anybody and carrying the conversation and inspiring people to do what you want them to do because they want to do it. Those kinds of things are on more in the sales side. But to sit down and go through a print, and my GM at QuickTech, he can look at a print and go, it's not going to work, and here's why. I couldn't do that in a million years, and he can do it in
Sure.
3 seconds. You know what I
Right.
mean? And so
Yeah.
he's got that skill set I don't have, and so often they're not in the same brain. So I tell
Mhm.
people, don't beat yourself up because you don't have it. Just like you do. I mean, I guarantee you, when you started Pro Shop, you have a lot less people than you have today. Is my guess. You grew a team that did what you couldn't or didn't want to do.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah,
And so
absolutely.
that's what I think we've got to do. We've got to bring in these people that can help us.
Wow. So, I'm sure people want to hear just a little more nuts and bolts. So you
Sure.
bought Quick Tech.
Yeah.
You went in. You you immediately started to diversify, get that
Yep.
75% customer, same revenue, if not growing it, but filling
Yep.
in all these others, which was a strategy that our shop employed whenever we had a customer, like kind of surge in a period of time and become too
Yep.
big a percentage. We would try to grow all the others or add new ones so that we brought them back down into that 10% range, which was the range we wanted to be at,
So comfortable.
per
Yeah.
client. 10 customers all at 10% is a beautiful thing,
That's a
or
great business.
20 at 5% or whatever.
That's a great business.
Um, but how did you actually go and do that?
Yeah. Yeah. So the first thing I did was I took that 75% customer, and I said, year one, our goal is not to drive them down. Year one is to drive revenue up. So even if it is through them, I just want to see revenue go up for the first year because that's going to give us more money to grow the business. So I said the first year I want my top 5 customers. So we took our top 5 customers and we visited all of them. And I can tell you that if people are listening and they do no marketing whatsoever, but they do one thing, it is do a quarterly visit with every customer that spends money with them. And I'm telling you, I don't care if you got to get on a plane, or sometimes that even means more to them, or if it's within driving. A lot of our shops, shipping's an issue, so they are drivable. They're only a few
Mm-hmm.
hours. A couple hundred miles, you can get to quite a few customers. Maybe not all of them, but some of them.
Mm-hmm.
And so what we started implementing was quarterly visits that have now become every other month visits because the relationship has grown so much. And
Nice.
so every quarter we visit every customer, and we schedule that out. And by coming in, the script is literally, we're just wanting to make sure things are still showing up on time. We're still hitting all of your demands. Can we do anything better? Is there any parts you'd like us to look at and see if we can help you out? Some of our customers already have a machine shop in place. So, all of our, that's the biggest fear of every machine shop, is that their customer starts one, right? And
Mm-hmm.
so, and I will tell you this, by the way, all of us that run machine shops, that's a fear, but it's not that easy to run a machine shop. It's pretty hard to start one.
It's the hardest business in the world.
It is the hardest business. It's so hard. And so when people tell me, we're going to bring it in house, and they haven't done a machine shop thing before, I'm like, usually. So our biggest customer at the second shop we bought did that. They bought a lathe. They were going to start turning a lot of the parts that we did. And that lathe for a year and a half now is sad as a giant $150,000 paperweight, because they just can't. And we're still doing all their parts. And
Right.
because they had one maintenance guy that swear he could learn to program online, and and that kind of thing. So, but I say all that to say, visit. If you do anything, just visit your customers every quarter. Sit down with them. Just what can we do better? A lot of times, people are afraid of that question, because it highlights weakness. The first thing I want to know from my customers is if there's any glitch from the PO getting to my email to the part getting to their door. I want to know every single glitch, because I want to remove them all, obviously. And so, but that helps them see so much. You think about how good are your relationships that you don't really spend a lot of time on. And we think about that same way. Think about a parent and a kid, how much relationship is built when you don't spend time with them. And I think about that with our customers. I'm like, they need to be nurtured the same way. We need to meet with them. What are your desires? How can we help? And so really foster that. So if I could say the nuts and bolts thing of how we really exploded was, I didn't even try to go get new accounts at first. The first thing I did is just go talk to our people and just say, how you doing? What's going on?
Yeah.
What can we do? We got a part that was a blanket order from one of our customers that actually forced us to, we're buying a new machine right now because of one of those visits. And so that kind of stuff happens all the time. And so I would say the nuts and bolts first. That's what we do. The first year of every shop we buy, we don't do anything except we visit every new customer, or every customer once a quarter. Right. That's all we do.
Yeah. So, and I will just say before I ask more about that, episode 7, Alan Hartman from Hartman's Inc., he also was a huge advocate of going to your customers quarterly, visiting them, taking them to dinner, whatever, lunch, just sit down face to face and talk.
Yep.
And,
Absolutely.
It's such sage advice. So yes, everyone listening, get out your notebook, write that down right now, put it on your calendar, make it a sticky note on your monitor. You just got to do it. So, and that probably then speaks to the fact that you're not, the technical person. That means that when you go out, and because quarterly visits to customers at now 4 shops, or 3, soon to be 4 shops, that's a lot of travel. That's a lot of visits.
Sure.
You don't have time to be setting up machines and programming parts and quoting jobs. So it's sort of it's a beautiful thing that you can't be the technical person because you just don't have the skill set.
Yeah, totally.
So it is a conundrum for those that are technical founders, because they are often, as the people that you bought from, they are going to the shop every day. They are deeply involved in the daily operations, probably making decisions all day long about what to do and do this and giving orders. So is it your advice to then extract yourself from those deeply daily technical roles that are like mission critical to getting jobs out the door?
That's a great question, man. So if I'm a technical operator, the first thing I am going to focus on is I'm going to focus on, I'm going to target the top 2 people on my team that have leadership capacity, not machining capacity necessarily, but leadership capacity. Now, maybe you run a floor with 2 people on it. Maybe you run a small shop and you only got 2 guys. You got a mill guy and you got a lathe guy, or a girl, and they're out there running. You only have 2 people and you're in doing the programming, and it's a lean shop. You're running tight. You're just making it by every month, and you don't have time. And that's, I think, a lot of the treadmill that keeps owners from doing this stuff. And so if it's not a visit, at least start with a phone call. At least start with, because a lot of times we take our customers, and I've done this. We take our customers for granted. We take for granted that a PO shows up, once a week for XYZ. And so start with a phone call, but also start with training. Start with, is there a day a week, or can you run a shop? Can you switch to 410s and not 5/8s and take Fridays to visit customers? There's ways around this. If we, a lot of times people come at this concept with the obstacle of time rather than asking, like, okay, but how could I create the time to do it? It is mission critical. Talk about mission critical. Nothing's mission critical if you don't have anything to make. And so I always say, go to 410s and take Fridays to go visit people. You don't lose any production time. In fact, a lot of people would say 410s. There's one less start and stop, and so you actually make more parts in 410s. We're piloting that right now at one of our shops, and moving to 410s and seeing if that works, and then we'll apply it, business wide. But so to the technical operator, they got to train some people so that they can do that. But if it's not a visit, it's a phone call. But I would even say, even if it's a half a day, just plan on being out of the office and going and visiting. It's that important. And it doesn't even have to be every week. Most people,
Sure.
like you and I were talking about, you got 4 or 5 customers that are important. It can be a 2-hour visit once a week, or, one day a month you go and you hit everybody, or whatever it is. It's just got to be on the calendar.
Sure. Yeah. Yeah. Even if it's a flight, but you fly in the morning, do your meeting, and fly back home that same day.
I've done that before. I did that in Atlanta at a customer. I flew in, saw him, flew out, because sometimes that has to happen. Yeah.
Yeah. And then, so in the story about about design to part, were you there exhibiting?
Yeah, I was there exhibiting. So
that's something else you started to do.
Yeah.
Or maybe they were doing it before, but.
Yeah. And I'll tell you why I went. I actually didn't go to get work. I went to see how people marketed in the industry. And it was, as I suspected, and as you know, trade shows is kind of like the way people market in the machining industry. Like they go to these shops. If you do find a shop that does some SEO and online marketing, they are cutting edge. And so some of them, and again, if you're out there and you're doing it, great, but most of them do not. So what I learned by going to that is that's where most people's marketing effort ends, is at shows like that. We stopped going because, not to all trade shows, but to most, because the money we put into them, I found out I could get a better return placing that on targets, meaning placing that, finding specific people that I wanted their business, and I was going to figure out how to get a meeting with them. Like, that money was spent better there on more of a laser precision, no pun intended. We call it, because in our thing, we don't, precision machining is what we do, meaning we do everything with precision. We show up on time, we deliver parts on time, and we market in a precise way. I don't just say, hey, anybody, can I make your parts? No. I market with precision, because that's the only way I'm going to grow. That's one of the things that I noticed about going to that trade show is there's 2 things. Number one, most shops are the exact same. They market time and quality, like on-time delivery, quality parts on time, every time kind of thing, not that that's, everybody's tagline, but that's pretty much, what we've decided to do with our customers and say, being on time and having parts that are right, that is like the bottom of the barrel promise for us. Like, that's
barrier to entry. Yeah.
Yeah. That's the
table
barrier.
stakes.
Exactly. Like, if somebody comes around and they're beating their chest about being on time and making great parts, I'm like, you need to go to the next one. For us, it's not about quality parts on time every time. That's a given. For us, it's about how do we partner with you and make sure that everything you promise to your customer is also on our shoulders. We call it, internally we call it, we put the part in partnership, because it's the idea that we want to make sure that we're one of your staff members. When you have a problem, call us, let us help you. We'll drive there if we need to. We'll come, because we're not a machine shop. We're part of we're your wide receiver. We're part of the team. And so that's part of what we did when I went to the trade show. I realized these are just guys with banners saying, hey, we make stuff. And we wanted to say, no, we want to come alongside these customers. And so we don't even market that. In fact, it's still on our website at QuickTech, the quality parts on time. I met with our team 2 weeks ago, and I said, hey, we're bringing this stuff down because we're more specific than this. So, and we don't get any work through our website. We have it, but we don't get any work through it because we do more strategic stuff.
Yeah, which also I think speaks to the point you made earlier, that when you go visit companies like the ones that have 17,000 SKUs and you do 3, and they're having such a hard time getting people to deliver parts on time, that the brand promise or whatever, the slogan of quality parts on time every time, it's BS in most cases, because very few shops
100%.
are actually delivering on time.
Doing that. Exactly.
Yeah.
That's exactly right.
So it's a very hollow promise.
That's 100% accurate. That's 100% accurate, dude. I could not have said it better myself. And I always say, you want to go to a deeper level of differentiation as a shop. Like, what do you really do? Part of the reason when I bought QuickTech, we're a lathe and mill shop. When I moved to the next shop, I did something that was way more niche. They did gear hobbing. We had gear hobbers on. So they did a lot of gear work in that second shop. The third shop did way more mold work, a lot more mold work. And then the fourth shop does more tool and die. One of the things I've seen shops do is they're a generalist. Like we do all this. So we're generalists. And I tell people this all the time. Who generates more revenue? The general practitioner or the heart surgeon, right? The heart surgeon's always going to make more money.
All day long.
So we're like, we want you to specialize in something. And so what we did is we wanted to be a full catalog for our customers, meaning you have a die, we can do that. But we wanted to have a very specific vertical that's all they did. So it wasn't generalist. We're a book of specialists. And so that's our whole model, is that one customer, that customer 17,000 SKUs, some are dies, some need a wire EDM, some need a mill and a lathe, just normal stuff. Some need 5-axis, some just typical 3-axis work. Some need gear work on it. Some need to be ground because the tolerances are crazy. And, all of this stuff flies about, but we can come and say, listen, we have a book of shops that handle this, but you still have one point person. They really like that. But here's the problem. When a shop is just this generalist, we make everything for everybody, and they don't hone in on a specialty, then you go to and this is why a lot of those trade shows don't work, because that's what everybody does it. Everybody's got a mill and a lathe and say, we do CNC work. And that's where you have to get a little bit more specialized in your focus, in my opinion.
Oh my gosh, so good. There you could jump off into so many different areas. I do just want to touch on something and I want to ask you, are you an E-Myth reader?
Oh yeah. That's one of my, for sure.
It sure seems like it's a Bible, the way you're talking about everything you're doing.
Yeah, that was a big one. The big one I got out of the E-Myth was the lead and lag indicators in our companies. We really focused on the lag indicator is we generated 500,000 more in revenue this year. That's a lag indicator. Lead indicator is we called 3 times as many customers. I can control that, right? So we switched to focus all on lead indicators and really the things we could control. And so we said, okay, we can control how much we ship a month, and we can control how many customers we sell, because we've already got the parts. So those are our 2 main things we measure, I'll say. And there's a lot of other KPIs that we use, but those are our biggies we talk about, like how many quotes are we doing, how many POs are we getting, all those kinds of things because of those 2 metrics. But that's a big E-Myth stuff, man. That book was revolutionary to me. Yeah, us too, years ago. And then I just wanted to double click on, you got to go past the, quality parts on time. And I've been a huge advocate, and you may have heard me talk about this, is selling with your business processes
and in
Mm-hmm.
many cases, really more specifically, your quality systems. Like,
Yeah.
you know, I feel like, because I learned this, many years ago, big strategic buyer at a big aerospace company. We became pretty good friends. He was a customer of ours, but he said, Paul, I can walk into a shop and they could their website probably says, great quality, parts on time, all the time. And I
Yeah.
can
Right.
walk into that shop and in less than 5 minutes, I can just smell the chaos and the lack of business systems and just the, the running around like a chicken with your head cut off. Is like, you can't hide that from me. Like, there's
I know
just so
that
many
stuff.
indicators
Yeah.
that behind the curtain, this shop is a mess, and this is not the kind of shop I want to do business with. So
Yeah.
I think
100%.
proving, and I've talked about this at Top Shops conferences and blogs, and like trying to share, or just not trying to, but actually sharing with your customers, A, what your niche is, and B, how you execute it really well. Like, why you have good quality, why you have good delivery. It's like, what are the systems to almost guarantee you're going to be on time every time,
Oh,
right?
it's so good, man.
Um,
So good.
and I just think that's really getting into the meat and potatoes of what a buyer or a strategic
Looking
sourcing
for.
type of person wants to know, because
Yeah.
at the end of the day, they're in the risk mitigation business, right?
They
I've said that
absolutely
many
are.
times before too. Like,
They
they're, like you
absolutely
said,
are.
the promises to their customers is that they're going to get their products, and
Totally.
they're relying on you to make sure that happens. So the more confidence you can instill in them that they're going to be successful with their clients, you're going to become part of that team, right? And
Yeah,
that means more
absolutely.
revenue and more business. So
Yeah,
uh,
years ago, I read a book called The 22 Irrefutable Laws of Marketing, or The 22 Immutable Laws of Marketing. Everybody should read this book, by the way. It has
okay.
nothing to do with the machining industry, but it has everything to do with the machining industry. And so, one of the things in that book, it talks about the beer Coors Light and how they switched to their marketing. And if you've ever seen a Coors Light commercial, it shows people like climbing up the Alps and going into the cold thing. Basically, what it was is they showed a picture of a process of how they got their beer so cool, so crisp, so good, and then they brought to that customer. They took up like 8% more market share after they went to that marketing because they showed the process of how they did it, quote unquote.
Right. Yeah.
And it's the same thing as you're saying. When we show those
Wow.
processes, it's worth paying $500 for a local video guy to come in and video a process in your shop for marketing. It's worth
Hmm.
that $500 you're going to spend for that, and show
Sure.
them that it goes to Casey. That's our QC guy. It goes to
Hmm.
Casey, who's been here 30 years. He checks every part that comes out of our door, and then it goes over to our shipping department, and it goes this and this and this, and then you're going to get a packing slip right in here. Whatever your process is, most of
Hmm.
our processes are close to the same. And it gives you a chance to picture that, but it's worth going on your local Upwork and finding a video guy for $500 to come in and video
Yeah.
what you're up to.
Yeah. Totally. And to me, that was one of the biggest takeaways from the E-Myth, was the concept of the franchise prototype,
Yeah,
where do it, build your process, build it the same way. Every human wants repeatable, consistent touch points, product, everything. That's why people go to McDonald's. They know they're going to get the same burger in Cincinnati or in Orlando,
it's
because
going to
the
taste bad in
process
both places.
yeah, the process, but it's, at least it's consistent. The
It's
process is
consistent.
nailed,
Yep,
and it's documented, and that
100%.
instills confidence in the customer that they're going to get what they expect, at least.
That's
So
that's that's 100% accurate. Yep,
yeah,
I think you're right, and I think that we underestimate how important that those kinds of things are to purchasing managers and supply chain managers and the people buying from us. I don't think we know just how important that is.
yeah, because they, and I'm sure you get this, having gone and sit with and talk with them. Their roles have changed dramatically, and I've
Mm-hmm.
seen it in the last 30 years I've been in the industry.
Sure.
um, they are less technical than they've ever been. They are more overburdened than they've ever been. And if everything doesn't go completely flawless, if you ship a package without the document package in the box, or a copy on the outside of the box and a copy on the inside of the box is what they've asked you for, the last 10 orders, and the companies keep forgetting to put the inside copy,
Yep.
because then that screws up their receiving process. So then they need to
Yeah.
call you and say, hey, send me the document package. They don't want that friction. They're so overburdened. They just want things to absolutely flawlessly run through smoothly. The less times they have to think about your company, the better, unless you're taking them to lunch once a quarter. And then they're
That's
happy to
exactly
do
right.
that.
That's so true, man. Yeah, we always say, I had a team meeting 2 weeks ago, and we always say, if our systems burden their systems, our systems need to change. And
100%.
so that speaks to your point, is if your systems are breaking their systems, meaning somebody else has to come in and check it or do whatever, that's a problem.
Right.
And that's what those quarterly visits will tell you. You go there and you'll figure
Right.
out, oh, I need to do this differently. If I did this, it would make their life just a little bit easier. That's what
Yep.
those visits will surface.
Yeah. Yeah. So you mentioned that, it's easy to find people that know how to program a machine or set up a machine,
Yeah.
and, you bring the business side. A lot of companies don't have a easy time finding people to program a machine and set up a machine.
Sure.
Why do you say it's easy, and why do they say it's hard?
So I'm going to go a little energetic woo woo on you, and not too energetic woo woo, but I'm going to go a little bit. I do believe we create what we believe, and so I choose in our company to believe good people are are everywhere. We just have to find them. We do not adopt the narrative hard people or people are hard to find, because that is the reality we will create, and I don't want that reality in our business at all. Part of our system is we want to create a culture that it's easy to get people to come work for us because they want to come work for us. And so that's one point. The second point, the way we actually do that mechanically is we reach out, and we are very tied into every technical college within 50 miles of every shop. If there's a technical college within an hour, believe me, we know their department head, and we've talked to them. And our last two guys have come out of tech colleges, and they've been great. They've only knew manual stuff. They knew no CNC work. And man, they came in and they just exploded, because there was kind of like this blank slate, but hungry to work. And so, because sometimes in these shops, it's hard to get on a machine if you don't have experience. And so we have a really good apprenticeship program where we'll do 3 days a week and allow them to take 2 days off to do school. So we get them that way. And then once you get one guy there, they tell their friends, man. And it's like, I got a buddy who's looking for the same kind of thing. Do you have any other places? And so that's why we're tied into the tech colleges heavily.
Mm-hmm.
So that's a big thing. But the other thing that I have found is, because, we talk about that engineering and sales brain, they live in kind of different brains. That's one of the things I tell shop owners all the time, is getting out and networking with machine salesmen. All these people that are in the industry are in shops every day. That's how you get good people. You find a machine salesman. We've got a great machine salesman in Ohio, and he's a great guy. He helps us find excellent deals. And and by the way, I don't see these guys as pests. A lot of them do. And I'm like, no, come on in, talk to me, man. I don't need anyone right now, but I hope I need one in a year, or I hope I need one in 3 months. So come on in, let's chat. I welcome those conversations, because I'm like, hey, do you know of anybody looking for work? We're looking for 2 operators. And always those conversations lead to something. So I think that the networking piece, and you have made this so great with networking with so many shop owners, building the company you've built, creating these experiences, this podcast. I'm so grateful, because it can be a lot of these shop owners feel like we're on islands sometimes without these networking opportunities. And so, and I'm so grateful for them. But that's one thing, is number one, we choose not to believe in our culture that in our company that it's hard to find people. Like, we just don't adopt that, even though all things say it is. And then the second thing is, we just take every chance to network with the people that connect with people in the industry. And so those are the 2 things we do to find workers. And then at every company, we're always asking, we ask, that's why I said earlier, 2 people. We have the question, who's our next 2? Our next 2 stands for who's the next people in the company that are maybe standing in a lathe, but they have capacity. So where's our next 2 people that we can grow to that next level? Maybe they're running a lathe, but they can start doing setup, or maybe they can do setup on lathe and mill. Maybe they can actually be like a little bit of a production manager, floor manager-y kind of role. So we're always looking for our next 2. Like, who are the people in the company we're underutilizing they have more capacity. They would love the challenge. They would love to be in on some of the more top level conversations. Who are those people? And
Hmm.
how do we, you know, take them to something? You know, we take them to a customer meeting, and they feel like they just touched the edge of the moon. You know what I mean? A lot of these guys, because they've been standing in a machine. You know what I mean? And
Sure.
so that's part of it, is pulling them in. I can tell you, when I bought QuickTech, that's one of the first things I did. Is I looked. We had a quality control manager. He's 49 years old. He's been at this company 30 years. And
Wow.
yeah, I mean, unbelievable. And he doesn't know. And then there was another operator that had been there 10. And I met with both of them, and I said, "You two are going to run this shop. It's not going to be today, but you two are going to run this shop eventually." Because I saw the capacity in them. I said, "But there's one hurdle I can't fix. You guys both have to want to, and you both have to believe you can. If you got that, I'll show you everything you need to know." And they have just thrived. They're growing. They are running the shop now. I have my regional manager that shows up maybe one day a week, just so they know they're not alone. But they're powerhouses in the industry, and or in our world. And I told the guy that's been there 30 years, I said, "Buddy, you're the heart to our shop. You're the heart to this business. You've been here longer than me. You were here before the previous seller came here, quite a while before that. The guy that sold me the company. You are the heart to who we are." And
Hmm.
so, handing off some of that mission, that they are that, um, is a big is a huge piece to who we are and what we do, and finding people isn't why we believe finding people isn't as hard, because a lot of times the people we want to find, we already have. We just need to unleash.
Right. Wow. You said I love that so much, and I can see why you traveled to 39 states, and it's talked about building teams and all that, because clearly you have a passion and some skill for it. You said the word mission. Did QuickTech already have a mission and vision statement when you core values when you bought it, or did you bring that in?
No, it had none of that. It had none of
Okay.
that, and part of it was, as we know, a lot of the baby boomers that created these businesses and are just a heartbeat to a lot of the manufacturing industry. Quite frankly, they weren't trained that way. They didn't think about that. They just thought about build a shop, and they build a dang good one. But that mission side is, I think, coming around with guys like us, specifically guys like you that are adding a lot of value in the industry, saying, "Listen, core values are not a cute banner on the wall. Like, these are they make
No.
decisions for us." You know what I mean? And so yeah, it had no mission, no core value. None of the businesses I bought had core mission. They had great people, but just not, and if
Hmm.
I said, "Where do you want the company to be in 5 years?" They wouldn't even understand that question. You know what I mean? Because they really are like, "I don't really know about 5 years. I just want to continue to have enough work to keep my guys working and make enough money myself." And that's the sentiment for most of them. And so that's a good value add to the industry that the next generation of leaders can do, is come in and say, "Hey, here's some directives that everybody can get on board with."
Yeah. So how did you go about creating those?
Yeah.
Hopefully, I imagine including the team and the creation of those, or yeah, what did you
Yeah.
do?
Yeah, so I have learned, when I was young and dumb. Now I'm older and still in need of a lot of learning. But when I was young and dumb, I used to just create these and hand them to people. And what I found was, and you will probably already know the problem of that, Paul, is what I found was, when I was young, is people promote what they help create. And so if you pull them into the decision, it's like it skyrockets. And I don't have to force the mission. It's like saying, "Here's a battle plan, but you don't have any soldiers. But if 5 people come in and help you build it, now you got 5 people to fight the battle plan." So now I want my guys to come in and say, who do you think we are as a company? Well, we do this. We do really good work. We're tight tolerant shop. Okay, that's a little bit different. Okay, tight. Some people don't want to do anything lower than X, and like, we can go pretty stinking tight, other than grinding. And so, like, okay, that's a little different. Let's talk about that. And that's why we came to everybody came to and again, I was leading this. I was asking questions because I knew the core values I wanted to land at. That's the truth. As a leader, you know where you want to land. So I asked the questions, so they answered it. They came up with it, not me. And
Hmm.
then they're part of it, and I want them to be part of it. And so one of the big things that we all agreed on that, and I'm like, is it okay to be late? And they're like, no, it's not okay to be late to work. It's not okay to be late with a part. So, okay, so is it okay for me to tell you I'm going to do something, not do it? No, not okay. So that's why we came up with the word precision. That it's precision in everything we do. If I say I'm going to do it, then I'm going to do it. If we tell a customer I can have it by Thursday, I don't care if I got to get in a car and drive 5 hours. I'm going to have it there by Thursday. And do things happen? Of course, everything.
Sure.
We're humans. Of course, things happen, and a machine breaks down that we were planning on working. Of course, it's the world of manufacturing for sure. But I've learned that customers don't care that you're late once in a while. They care that you're on time once in a while.
Yeah.
And so,
and have great communication when
yeah,
something
100%.
may go awry.
Yeah, you got it. So yeah, we pulled our team in. I hired a regional manager that basically leads all of the points. So we have a production or a on point like site manager that manages the day-to-day ops of the shop. And then I got a regional guy that meets and trains those people to make sure that they're hitting their goals, their objectives. And he specifically, I really now have moved it to where I have one point of contact, and it's him. I train him, and he works with the shops themselves. And him doing that, he's so much better at the manufacturing process than I am. It's not even funny.
Sure.
Like, he's brilliant. Like, he's led multiple shops before. He was actually in the Navy for 6 years, a naval interrogator. I mean, the guy is a brilliant leader. He's way better leader than I am, way better. And so he can come in and inspire people and lead people, and he can have conversations. He's just brilliant. And so I'm like, I need to stay out of the way so this guy can actually help us grow. And so I had him come in more and develop those shop principles, those core values, even than me, because he's the one thrusting more. And I can sit more in the acquisitions role and look for new opportunities for us to grow on acquiring more, and he can make them successful. So when I came in, I'm like, I've done this, and I've been a kind of a solo kind of gunslinger for a lot of years, and moving into more of these people. I had somebody say, you just have to hire somebody better than you. I'm like, how do I hire somebody better than me if I'm the entrepreneur? Like, I'm the guy, I'm supposed to know it. That's my weak thinking, by the way. That's not true. There's so many people that could lead my company way better than I could. And knowing that was a tough truth for me to come to.
Yeah, no, but such an important one. So do you have, when this fourth one closes, we have 4 different company names, logos. It's not all under one. It's not all under QuickTech.
No, it's not. It's all 4 different companies, 4 different capacities, 4 different locations. The question is still out if we will go through a rebranding later on and make them all one company that has a different, just basically a different service,
divisions or whatever.
Yeah, in different regions. And so that probably will happen. But here's the thing, Paul, I'll tell you what, and if you have any insight, I'd love to hear it. But one of the things for us, also part of those quarterly visits, is if we ever do go through a brand change, it's not going to matter to our customers because they know us.
Sure.
They're like, I don't care if you call it Mike Fritz Manufacturing or QuickTech. It doesn't matter to me. I just know the same people are bringing my parts to my door. That's what I care about. So if we ever do go through a big rebrand and put everything under one roof, under an umbrella, it won't matter because our customers will all get visits explaining that, and they'll be cool with it because we've had it. But no, we're all separate, but eventually we'll probably roll up.
Now, you said, when you have these 4 or multiple, niches, the gear hobbing, the tool and die, all that, your customer has one person to call on. Do you share sales, efforts so you get the cross-sell opportunity? Is there like a person in one of those 4 that is the sales contact for each customer?
Yep. So the reason we have an on-site manager is that person deals with the day-to-day. They deal with hiring, firing of those machinists. They deal with programming. They deal with ordering material, all the things that happen, just, day-to-day shop stuff. Putting things in the ERP, making sure QuickBooks is kicked off, all that stuff. They deal with the day-to-day. Our regional is just there as a resource. He does visit them. He does have weekly calls with them, making sure any glitches this week. Okay, good. But that person right now is we sifted off our top 3 customers of each business, each location, and he has strategic relationships with everybody at those businesses. And the
So he does
reason we did
sales
that,
as well. He does
yeah, so
sales as well.
he's doing sales right now, but that will not be a long-term solution. That's a
Got
short-term
it.
solution.
Okay.
Long-term, we will have somebody in the sales role as he kind of slides into more of a kind of a COO, if
Yep.
you want to use
Yep.
corporate language role. And we'll have a sales, we call them road warriors, just a road warrior out loving on customers. What can we do for you kind of thing. But
Mm-hmm.
currently he's connecting. But every single business will still have, whether we have, let's say we have 2 or 3 sales guys, they'll still have one point of contact on that salesperson. That
Got
salesperson will
it.
take and deliver that quote. And so they
Got it.
still get one person and their parts are showing up on time. And so as the machine gets bigger,
Mm-hmm.
you know this better than anybody, your systems have to get bigger, better.
Sure.
As you get
Yeah.
bigger, because usually the only way to know you have a bad system, sadly, is to get an angry call sometimes.
Sure. Sure.
And that's those are uncomfortable but needed sometimes. You need to break the system
Right.
a little bit to know where to fix it.
Right. Okay. So just to clarify and drill the point home. So if a customer sends you a big package of drawings,
Yeah. Yeah.
and you guys quote a lot of those, they could get quotes with letterhead from QuickTech and from Mike's gear hobbing
Good question.
business and
Yeah.
Bob's, machine shop. So
Yeah.
is
So
that right? Or will they get one quote and you divvy up the work between the shops?
one. Yep. They'll get one quote. And what'll happen is let's say it'll come into QuickTech. Because the one thing QuickTech has that the other shops don't have, QuickTech has an ISO certification. The rest of them do not. They don't have any certifications. So if ISO is kind of like important, it may come through QuickTech, and then we just might farm it out to those shops, and there will be a PO from QuickTech to those shops. That's how we do it. But they'll still only have one PO with 12 part numbers. Boom, boom, boom. This is going here. This is going here, and it's kind of a filing effort at that point. So it still comes through one door, and then we divvy it up. The customer doesn't know any difference.
Got it.
The customer doesn't know any difference.
Yep. But they know you have 4 locations with different
Yeah, they know we have 4
specialties.
locations. Yep. Every time we do that, we let them know, hey, we've got some more capacity. We've got some more availability. We've got some more skill sets, some more machinery, whatever it is. We can look at your other, parts.
That's a great clarification. I feel like we're going to need to do a part 2, Mike. I really do.
I'm in.
Yeah, are you?
You tell me when. I
like next week.
I could talk anytime, bro. I could talk about this stuff because I feel like man, once you get this getting customers through the door, machining gets really fun.
Mm-hmm.
It's really fun when you don't have to worry about paying payroll, dude. So many, I've been there. When I first took over the company, it was on a decline. We had to pull it back up, and I get it. I know what it's like to have to inject a little bit of your own cash to cover payroll. It's not fun, and the sales cycle is the only thing that gets us out of that.
Sure. Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah. No, having we call that positive sales pressure. And having it be positive versus negative, it's just a game changer in how much fun it is, how much stress it is. It's a different kind of stress when you're too busy, but it's way better than the alternative.
150%. I always say I can always call up a shop that doesn't have enough work to outsource some work and have to make a little less on that part. But I can't make parts for myself unless I have my own pet, which I don't. So no, that's a great point, Paul.
Well, I want to get into what shops that are out there that we already talked about. If they're still got years ahead of them and they're not busy enough, we talked about what they could be doing there. We didn't talk about if they are one of those baby boomers or they want to exit their business, what they need to put in place so they don't have to close their doors or have you buy them. Or maybe that is the answer. And then I really want to get into if someone's in your shoes, how do they go find shops? How do they find the good ones? How do they, not get into something that's going to be a big mess?
That's a good question.
So there's, so I really do probably soon. Maybe we'll have back to back. We'll see. But you got it. I knew I had high hopes for this one, but you have absolutely grand slammed it out of the park. So much wisdom to share, so many great ideas. And I wish every single shop owner out there could listen to this episode and the one that's going to hopefully come next. So, So yeah, you already said yes, we'll do it. I'm just
Let's
putting it
do
on
it.
record. We're doing a part two. We're already at an hour
Part
5,
two.
which is you usually try to cap it about an hour, but we have so much more to go. Um,
Absolutely.
so, but let's share for people if they want to reach out
Sure.
directly to you. How would they do that?
Yep. That's M Fritz M Fritz at quicktechmachining.com. Now, quick tech
Okay.
is just quick TEK
Yep.
machining.com. Yep.
We'll
So
make
just
sure it's in the show notes and on the
sure.
podcast players. But
Yep. Yep. Email
eh,
me, and I love just talking machining. So be happy to hop on the phone with people and just connect. That's part of my passion. So I love to chat.
wow, thank you so much. Okay, well, Mike, like I said, it's so fun to talk with you. Genuinely, I can see you have a lot of energy, a lot of passion. I can see why you enjoy doing this, and it's easy to get people to come do it with you. So thank you for this one. I'll be in touch real soon about part 2, and we'll continue the conversation and hopefully bring it full circle and try to help a lot of folks out there.
Can't wait, Paul. Thanks again for today.
All right. Thank you so much, Mike. Talk to you again soon.